In this video, I'm going to talk about legislatures. Politics is making decisions in groups, but the ability to make decisions can be constrained by the size of the group. It's one thing to make a decision in a small group of, let's say, 3 people, the decision on where to go for dinner. That's an easy decision. When that group becomes larger, a group of 30 people, it is much more difficult to make that decision because you've got different interests that are all competing with one another. It's hard to make a decision that all of those folks can live with. Easy in a group of 3, harder in a group of 30. Even more difficult in a group of 30 million. How about 300 million? Or even 1.3 billion people? At this level, it becomes necessary to use a different mechanism for making collective decisions at the national level. And a mechanism for doing that is to delegate power. When you've got a large group, a city, a state, a province, or a country, there can be a group of people that are designated to make decisions on behalf of the group. And that is called representative government or representative democracy, where a smaller group is delegated with the power to make decisions on behalf of the larger group. That's representative governments. And that happens through typically a legislature or a legislative body. This is a part of the government, a body typically elected that has the power to make laws. Now, in a local government setting like a city council, that's typically done with one chamber, sort of one group of people like a city council that makes the decisions on behalf of the group. It can be divided into 2 chambers. That's called a bicameral arrangement. Now, a lot of countries have bicameral legislatures where there's 2 different chambers that contribute to the lawmaking process. The German Bundestag, for example, has a nationally representative body, but it also has one that represents the federal structure of Germany. Similarly, the United Kingdom has 2 chambers in their parliament, a House of Commons and a House of Lords. The House of Commons meant to reflect popular sentiment, while the House of Lords has a more aristocratic orientation with peerage appointments. A couple more examples. A unicameral national legislature, for example, like the one in Sweden here, the Sweden Riksdag. You can see the orientation. It's sort of set up in a semicircle. The idea is that it's going to breed compromise and negotiation, passing laws that everyone can agree with on behalf of the country. Bicameral legislatures, lots of different types of bicameral legislature. For example, India with the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. In a country like Canada, there are also 2 chambers, a House of Commons and a Senate. Now, Canada's arrangement, typical of many, where one chamber has more power than the other. In Canada, the lower chamber, the House of Commons, has more legislative power than the upper house, the Senate. The Senate exists to sort of provide a mix of different representation, including regional representation. The upper chamber has a suspensive veto. It can sort of delay legislation from the lower house, but ultimately the lower house has more power. And in some bicameral systems, that is typical, where one chamber of the legislature might have more responsibility or a larger role in the lawmaking process. Compare that to the United States, where their bicameral legislature has a House of Representatives and a Senate. However, both chambers have almost equal power, which can pose problems when you've got 2 different groups of people that are both claiming to have legitimacy and being the people's legitimate representatives. Also unusual about the American system is the short length of time in the House of Representatives. At 2 years, that is among the shortest duration for elected members of a legislature in the world. So, just to recap, a legislature is the body, the part of the government that has the power to make the laws. Lots of different arrangements. You can have 1 chamber or 2, unicameral or bicameral. And within that system, within a bicameral system, the composition might change, then the powers associated with each respective chamber can also change.